Welcome everyone to Spread 37. Spread stands for Supporting Peer Respect, Education, and Discourse. We started this organization because we liked hanging out and getting boba and going out to eat together, but we also wanted to direct our energy towards something more, whether that's learning about a topic together like personal finance, bartending, and first-time home buying, or putting our energy towards volunteering and making an impact in our community. We wanted to do this together. Spread is a space for us to self-organize and develop together. With that, I'd like to introduce our speaker for today, Kim. This isn't her first Spread event, and she's actually led several already. One is Yoga Flow, and the other is Reiki. She started yoga in 2015 and became an instructor in 2016 and has been teaching ever since. Today, she'll be sharing her knowledge with us about the philosophy of yoga. I'm really excited to learn more about this topic because I've settled into adulting where I work 9 to 5. I've got a regular routine going, volleyball, organize spread events, and hang out with my family and friends on the weekends. But is there more to life? How should I be living my life? I'm hoping that learning more about the philosophy of yoga will give some insight on these questions. So, without further ado, please welcome Kim.
Bedanka. Hello.
Right?
Hello. Thank you for being here. My name's Kim. We've all met. Let's go around real quick.
Wait, sorry, what was your name?
Let's go around, introduce our names. My name's Kim. Thank you, Will. What's your name?
My name is William.
My name is Sabrina. Carmen. Claudia.
Satya.
I'm Jackie. I'm Jenny.
And Jenny.
What was that?
Thank you. All right. Thank you. All right. So I guess I want to check in, and I asked you guys briefly earlier, but I want to get more of a straight answer because it wasn't really answered. But our yoga practices. So let's go this way. Our experience / current practice / intention / whatever.
My only experience with yoga is the classes I've taken with Kim. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jenny.
I have done yoga on and off through the years, but like more predominantly a dancer and like can value meditation. So kind of yoga sometimes falls in the middle there of like using energy and expressing it in the right ways. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, so kind of loosely do yoga, I guess, not that much, but I do cycling in my free time, so you get really like very tight. So I do a lot of yoga just to stretch it out and make sure your muscles are yourself.
Yeah, a lot of hip flexor stuff with the bike, so yeah, sweet, thank you.
I don't really do yoga. I haven't really done yoga much in the past. I've had experience with that.
Sweet, cool, thank you, Claudia.
I do yoga on and off, mainly YouTube video yoga.
Yeah.
But I definitely want to deepen my practice. I just don't have that discipline yet. But I just like do everything Kim does. I'm like,
Thank you.
Carmen do it sometimes. One class. So I'm doing a lot.
Yes, I remember we did our session it was a while ago. Yeah, that was through Spread though, right? Okay, cool. Thank you. Yeah.
I don't have any experience with yoga.
Sweet.
I think the closest is like doing taiko drumming in college, and that's about it. Stretches, calisthenics, but
Cool.
no experience.
Sweet.
Very open.
Yes. Great. Well, whether you do or not have a practice, you're in the right place. I was going to ask another question, but I guess we'll just start just for sake of time. So the 8 limbs of yoga, have you heard of it besides the Spread invitation and this paper? No? Okay, so essentially the 8 limbs is kind of like a pathway that's been written out formally by, this isn't him, but this is the commentary of the book, but Patanjali, Sri Guru Patanjali, he's a sage from 400, 500 BC about. So he came up with these sutras that kind of line out both the philosophy, the psychology of yoga, and it also lays out in book 2, it lays out how to practice, essentially, sadhana. And the 8 limbs is a part of that book. So that's where that is. It was around 400, 500 BC. So early, yeah. But yoga has been around for over 5,000 years. It's just been the record of, having all the things written out, and record is mainly traced back to 400, 500. And you'll see different things. So like I looked up online, I was like, when did Hatha yoga, which is the physical practice, start? And there's so many like people like scholars believe this guy says that, and it's like it ranges from thousands of years ago to 1100 BC. So it's like 4,000, 5,000 to 1,000 years ago. So that's a pretty big range, but essentially, we have this, and so that's that. The purpose of what it was brought, and yoga in general, is to attain like a level of wisdom and self-actualize, because you do a lot of like meeting yourself and seeing yourself. Like the first part of yoga is getting to yoga. Sometimes it's hard to just like get on your mat. So my teacher says just getting on your mat, that's the practice. Like there are days where I'm like, I don't want to get up. I don't. But that's like the monkey mind, they say in yoga, where we have like chatter that keeps us from either doing the right thing or what's it called? Yeah, the right thing, which is we'll go over in a little bit. So that's the pretense of this. Why we learn the 8 limbs. Yeah, so essentially it's a yogic path. It's one way. There's so many ways in yoga lineage. And you'll see throughout, when I go through some of these things, there's a lot of parallels with other religions. Yoga and Hinduism technically is an organized religion. It's like more of a philosophy, doctrine, cultural, and belief. And then there's yoga fits within the practice. It's like one way to... Okay, this isn't a Hinduism talk, so I'm trying to keep it secular. It's like so broad though. Anyways, any questions so far? Any questions?
So you're saying that like yoga is like nested within Hinduism, or it's like a Venn diagram?
It's within, I would say. Yeah. I mean, there are lots of people, especially in the West, there are lots of people who practice yoga, but they don't follow Hindu ideology or beliefs, or like I don't consider myself a Hindu but I do, so it's within. It's like yoga's one way to attain oneness and recognition, because that's essentially, Hinduism is like recognizing the oneness of all. We're all connected. And then yoga translates to yoke, to unify, to join. And so by the practice, we're kind of like shedding old layers to remember our true self. And when we remember that, that's when we're like, oh. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. I think it'll all make sense when I go through the 8 limbs. So let's just dive right into it. So the first limb is Yamas. And normally people talk about the Yamas and Niyamas together, because they're kind of like, they're very similar and parallel to the 10 Commandments in Christianity, Judaism, and also the 10 virtues in Buddhism. So it's essentially like, don't kill, don't steal, be a good person, essentially. So just to go over real quick, so Ahimsa is non-violence. And all of these principles are within the mind, body, and action. So yes, do not harm another, do not hurt another. That's also in your thoughts too. Like you don't want to have violent thoughts towards another, like jealousy or envy, stuff that are harmful to you essentially. And also, again, you want non-violence towards yourself as well. So for like self-critical, these are sort of behaviors that can kind of taint our purity in a sense. So like the whole thing with yoga is to cleanse and purify and to, again, stay pure within our spirit essentially. Yes.
So you said like it's also in the mind. You don't even want to feel the jealousy, or you don't want to feel like anger.
That's a good question. And yeah, that's why I want to be careful. Like, it's not that you don't feel these things, because it's natural. It's a human thing to feel envy and anger and any kind of emotion. The practice is recognizing and noticing when these things come up, and then going from there, not getting attached to it and not letting it affect how you act and treat others as such. So anger is good actually, and any feelings. It's always going back to, yeah, again, the practice is just recognizing and trying to process it. So when we do some postures, like I don't know if you're a pigeon crier, but sometimes when we do like deep hip openings and like deep back bends, these are like opening channels, and sometimes it can bring up or like trigger things. And people sometimes are like, oh, triggers, that's bad, you want to avoid that. But especially when I learned from therapy, it's like triggers are good because it signifies something that you need to work through and process. It's not necessarily a bad thing. So especially in yoga, we kind of want to not invite it, we don't want to get triggered, but like it's again going back to the practice. When something comes up, a distraction, a thought, a feeling, the practice is recognizing it as it is. Like, okay, I'm feeling something, I'm feeling uncomfortable, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling whatever, anger, and then once you recognize that, then you can process it. Yeah. So, moving on. Thank you for the question. Satya is truthfulness, honesty. So again, that's within your words, action, yourself. So how authentic am I in my expression, in my actions, towards others, towards myself. Everything is like, that's Satya. Asteya is non-stealing. So again, obviously you don't want to steal your neighbor's goat or or farmland. I'm just putting it in terms of Patanjali time in the context of their time. But it could also be you don't want to steal people's time, energy, mental space. So there's lots of ways to apply that non-stealing. Brahmacharya. So in the context of the Patanjali time, it was more so because at the time boys were the only ones who could practice yoga, and more the rich people. So like boys, it was like not what's it called? It's celibacy essentially. So not having sex, not letting your energy, because your cum is a form of energy, right? So if you like excessively let that out, you're leaking energy essentially. So in the context of Patanjali, when he wrote these, Brahmacharya is not having sex, celibacy. In a more relevant context, we can loosely translate it to moderation. So moderating how much we go outside in public, moderate how much we eat. Because when we're in excess of things, it can lead to impurities again. Again, going back to like wanting to stay certain like, cleanliness and purity in our being. So that's Brahmacharya. Aparigraha, non-hoarding, non-greediness. Some people say it's also non-attachment to things. So again, yeah, to physical things, you don't want to hoard and be greedy, and that's kind of a given. And it could also be, in the mind too. So if you say, going back to the example of getting triggered, stories may come up, memories, and you're like, practicing Aparigraha is being unattached to it. So again, when mentioning the practice, like noticing, oh, I'm triggered, what does this mean? Like just staying unattached to that feeling so that you can process it. Okay, so that's the Yamas. That translates to restraints, abstinences. So it's like, don't do these things, don't lie, don't steal, yeah. Niyamas it's more of like an internal like practice. All of these things are internal, but especially with the Niyamas, it's more of like within yourself. So Satya, cleanliness, purity, again, that's within the mind, body. And so how that would look like on the yoga mat is like maybe you clean your mat before and after, take a shower, drink water, yeah, off the mat, yeah, take a shower, do all things, stay clean. And also in the mind too, you want to have clean, pure thoughts, interpret that however may. Santosha is contentment. It's also in line with gratitude. So being content with wherever you are, whatever you have or don't have, you're cool. You have all you need. And how that looks like on the mat is like perhaps you're working on crow pose or some pose and you don't get it today, and Santosha is like, okay, not today. That's not today, but... And then off the mat, of course, you can practice gratitude. People do gratitude journals. That's a commonly known practice to have. That's a commonly known practice. And tapas, not the delicious Mexican dish. Tapas is, it translates to burn. So it says here self-discipline, austerity. And so how that looks like on the mat is like, say you're in a balancing pose and it's hard. It's hard. Oh, I'm shaking. It's hard. Tapas is the focus to stay despite the discomfort, despite, if there's pain, you should change, of course, but if the posture is uncomfortable, that's the practice, right? We put ourselves in uncomfortable positions and we breathe through it, and that trains our body to regulate when we're in uncomfortable positions outside of the mat. Just like physiologically, when you breathe in and out through your nose, it tells your nervous system that you're okay. So we're in an uncomfortable pose, and it's like, oh my gosh, how long am I gonna be here? And that's the monkey mind. You notice it, and then you just come back to your breath, and like Aparigraha, you surrender to the situation. So that's tapas, burning to burn again. And they say like, in the sutras at least, they say when you suffer, it's hold up, I don't want to say the wrong thing. Anyways, but essentially suffering, it's a processing of, what's it called? It's like sacrifice. You know, when they in the past times they would sacrifice with fire, and the fire is to purify. That's why you sacrifice, right? To like let go. So that's what the practice sort of represents. You suffer in these postures, and it's hard, but you stick through it, and that's what will build your resilience, essentially. Svadhyaya is self-study. In Patanjali's words, it's actually of the study of the ancient texts. So the sutras, the Bhagavad Gita, the Upanishads, there's so many ancient Hindu texts. And the point of that is that you study these texts and you in turn learn about yourself, because as we see from what we've learned so far, it's like you start to reflect like, oh, am I being truthful? Am I nonviolent to myself and others? How am I maybe stealing from other people? So that's Svadhyaya. It's like using ancient and these essentially principles to reflect on ourselves and again try to find a sense of self-actualization Isvara Pranidhana. So it's Isvara is Lord or God, and then Pranidhana is like practice. So it's a devotion. It's kind of like, I'm trying to define it more secularly. Just devotion to something outside of yourself. So rather than like, oh, I'm doing this posture so I can have a nice butt. I have a nice butt. It could be like, okay, I want strong glutes so I can support my baby. I don't know, like just like taking your practice outside of yourself. So, okay, here's a good example. My sister's pregnant. It's my parents' first grandchild, and so my dad's so sweet. He's starting to work out. He's going swimming. He's changed his diet. And he was like, I just want to be there and I want to be strong for my grandchild. So that's a good example of Isvara Pranidhana, like just separating yourself from what you're doing and making it more about the whole. Like it's not about me, it's about everything else. Okay, so any questions on Yamas and Niyamas? Anyone want to share like something that may have came up like for one of these?
The one that spoke out to me the most is Varyaya.
Which one?
Varyaya? The fourth one. Under Niyamas.
Pratyahara?
Varyaya.
The reason why is because I like learning and I like reflecting on what I've learned. So that's like something that spoke to me. Because whenever I learn something new, I'll always like go back to it. Or it'll pop up in the back of my mind and be like, oh yeah, this relates to what I'm doing right now. Or maybe like I experience anger or jealousy, but like based on what I know, I can kind of rationalize it and not be as angry or as jealous as before.
To add on to that, it's like anger and jealousy, yeah, it's good to like recognize it and then try to ask like what's the purpose of this? Like what is this, like I see this person, I'm jealous. What is this bringing up? Like why? Like yeah, so that's the svadhyaya part of that. Nice. Okay, anything else? Any other thing that stuck out to anyone?
I'm learning a lot about meditation right now. My partner has been doing it for years, and like he has a lot of anxiety, so it like helps him kind of manage that. And one of the things that I struggle with a lot, and I think like now that I'm hearing more about this, I'm like I really should practice yoga a lot more. But it is that like, you know, when you're sitting there and you're just thinking, it's having those thoughts, acknowledging, and then being able to like let them flow. Whether
Yes.
that's like letting it go or just, you know, being like I can kind of take this and learn from it, like take something from it before it moves away, and I just like let it pass. And like the importance of that, because I do have that tendency to like linger on things, and like it, you know, eats you up from the inside, and it's, you know, it is that practice. So like hearing kind of the bigger picture of all of these things that you've discussed and how it is, it all comes together, right? Like it's all one whole piece that makes you healthier and like on many different levels. It's great to hear about it and a little bit of the history and like seeing how other parts of it all help with letting it go, and like being mindful or
Yes.
truthful will help you let things go easier. To
Yes.
acknowledge.
Oh yeah. Thank you. Yeah, and we're just getting started. These are just the first two. So if you see, the third one is asana, which is what we're mostly familiar with. Asana translates to a seat, specifically steady, comfortable, meditative seat. And it's number 3, but that's what we normally practice first. So with the 8 limbs, if you're practicing and following this, you'd want to be practicing the first 2 essentially before you even get on your mat. And that's what they say often, like practice off your mat. Like it's essentially like yamas, niyamas, like just being a good, healthy
So you're bringing
person.
the mat with you everywhere you
Yeah,
go.
you carry the mat with you, and then exactly, Will. Thank you. You're getting it. All right, so asana. Yeah, so the idea. So this is sukhasana. Sukha is easy, blissful, sweet. It's nice, easy. And there's also shirshasana, which is headstand. So the idea is like
Maybe there's like a swimming pool.
so it's like, so all these postures, they have asana at the end, because the idea is like, as you practice, to maintain this meditative, comfortable, steady seat in any posture, whether you're sitting down, whether you're on your head, whether you're on your hands. Again, comfortable poses, like trying to maintain the asana in it. So if you're driving, that's an asana. If you're in line, a super long line, that's an asana. Like, how do you maintain steadiness despite whatever position you're in, whatever's around you? That's asana, essentially. Yeah, so let's try it. Asana. So let's do standing. So draw your feet hip width distance. So from your hip points, your feet will be directly underneath. Okay, draw your hands onto your hips. And then just feel the earth beneath your feet. The floor is a little uneven, so notice that. The floor is uneven, that's okay. Try to find balance between your left and right foot. Ooh. Actually, let's try lean into your left leg. Lean into the right leg. Okay, find the center. Okay, balance. Reach your arms over. Palms face each other. Okay, arms are straight, but shoulders away from the ears, long neck. And then gaze is straight forward. So with asana, there's three parts. There's the posture, there's the breath. Sorry, you're breathing. And then there's the drishti, which is the point of focus. So normally it's to the tip of the nose. It depends on the posture. So here, let's just look straight ahead. Steady gaze. Take a breath in. And then exhale, release your hands by your side. Samasthitihi. Right, keep your right leg forward, step your left leg back. Draw your leg up, it's like about a leg's length distance. Okay, bend your right knee. And then ground down through your back heel. Press down. Open your hips out to the side. This is warrior 2. Extend the arms out opposite ends. Yep. So open your hip a little more, Sartaj. Yeah, there you go. Front knee over your front ankle. Keep breathing. Energetically roll the inner thigh up and away. And then drishti, one point of focus beyond your fingertips. Nice, and then step back. Samasthitihi. Other side, step your right leg back. About a leg's length distance. Front knee over your front ankle. Extend the arms, open the hips. Gaze beyond your left fingers. Okay, everyone look back to your back hand. Make sure it's in line with your shoulders. They say this is the past, represents the past. Then look forward to your front hand, make sure it's in line. And then the head, the mind's in the present. Okay, take a breath in. Stay for the exhale. Okay, and then step forward. All right. Nice. And then have a seat. Thank you. So that's asana. And even with the standing pose, sometimes we take for granted, we're so used to just standing upright. We're not aware about our bandhas, our root locks, all those things that we do unconsciously. But when you become conscious of them, it's powerful. Like when you're aware of oh, my right side is tighter than the left. That's potent information, because when you practice, you'll be able to adjust to that. Again, going back to noticing your thoughts and triggers, it's good that they come up so that you can adjust to them. And then likewise with the postures, if your left side's tighter than the right side, that's okay. We don't judge, right? It's okay, and it's actually kind of normal to have one side tighter. So you might just stretch that side longer, or it's all related. So that's asana. Any questions? I'm going through this pretty quickly. I think I'm just talking fast. So that's asana. Steady, comfortable seat. Pranayama, number 4. Oh, wait. Oh, you guys have numbers. Mine isn't numbers, it's letters. I was like, wait, why is it letter? Okay, so number 4 is pranayama. Prana is life force, cosmic force, also equivalent to the likes of like chi, Reiki, Holy Spirit. Those are similar parallels to life force. It's what gets us moving. We're alive because of it. Otherwise, we'd just be sacks of meat floating around, which is cool too. But it's not as interesting as an animated being. So prana, that's prana. Yama again is control, restraint. So pranayama is breath control, breath work essentially. We do it a lot in yoga classes too. The asana is designed, we do the asana in order to prepare the body for meditation, which you see later on. So that's why they have it in these steps. The asana is, I'm going back to asana. What's it called? It didn't come up until thousands of years after yoga came to be, the physical practice. And they came up with the physical practice, hatha yoga, in order, because they found that people were having trouble sitting still and meditating, which is yoga, right? Samadhi. So people were having trouble doing that, and I think a lot of us can relate to that, like just sitting down and then breathing and meditating is it's challenging, especially in our day and age and world. So that's why the asana is kind of like a gateway to get into meditation. If you take a yoga class, it's like 55 minutes or 95% of asana movement, and then you do like 5 minutes, 5% of just stillness, shavasana. So that's the, asanas are our friend, our gateway for the modern world to get into the more upper realms. So yeah, going back to pranayama, I read somewhere that yama is also to like extend. So pranayama, when you practice it, it's sort of like extending your life, essentially. There's some, what's it called? Stories, I guess, what are they called? Fables? Proverbs, essentially, where they say like you have a certain amount of breath in your life, like you're in, what's it called?
Borrowed time.
There's a limited supply of breath that you can breathe.
Essentially, yeah.
You breathe your last one. But then you're drawing out a breath, so you're extending time.
Yes.
Breathing more slowly.
Yes. So that's kind of the idea with pranayama too. You extend the breath, and essentially you're extending your life because you have so many breaths that if you're taking a slower breath, you're gonna live longer. Because you guys get it. Thank you. So let's practice. There's a number of pranayama practices. The one that I practice most often and offer is nadi shodhana, which is alternate nostril breathing. So with your right hand, you'll put down your pointer finger and your middle finger. Okay. Then with your thumb, you'll close your right nostril. Oh, pointer finger. Yeah. So there you go. I know it's kind of weird, but it'll feel better when you put it on your nose. So close the right nostril with your right thumb. Inhale through the left. And close the left. Exhale right. Through the right, inhale. Close the right, exhale left. Nice. That's one round. Let's do one more. Inhale left. Exhale right. Right, inhale. Left, exhale. Keep your eyes closed, rest your hands onto your thighs and breathe through both nostrils. So normally we do that a few more rounds, like a few minutes of that. But even just 2 rounds may notice a shift. Nadi Shodhana in particular helps balance our left and right sides, yin yang, if you will, masculine and feminine energies. Essentially, it helps balance So you can use this in the car if you're in traffic. It's one tool. Okay, and then gently blink your eyes open. So that's one example. You might have also heard of box breath. I believe they use it in the Marines or Navy to help swim. So you inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4. That's an example of pranayama as well. But there's so many. It's just like asana. There's so many pranayama practices. So there's that. And then pranayama will then help us prepare for pratyahara, which is the next limb. Pratyahara is withdrawal from the senses. So yes, it's closing your eyes is one way to practice. However, we still have sound, touch, taste, all of these senses. So how I interpret pratyahara is being able to, how do I do this? Okay, let's practice it first. So have your seat, press your hands onto your thighs, and then keep your eyes open, gaze softly towards the tip of your nose. And then observe what you see. Again, without any attachments or stories. Maybe you see the grass, it's like just a bunch of little lines. Blanket, just lines and colors. Then notice sounds around you as well. Car passing by, children, wind. So Pratyahara is essentially we gain these information from our senses unconsciously. We don't have to do anything. The practice of Pratyahara is sort of like, again, going back to the Yamas, Aparigraha, not being attached to what we see. So can you open our eyes or look forward now? So for example, if we're looking at the news, we're watching news, it's important to be updated with what's going on in the world, right? We're part of the world, we need to know what's going on. But it can be hard to not take on, like, if something was really serious or tragic or traumatizing, it's hard to not take it on. So there was a time where I didn't watch the news because I was just like, I can't take this. Like, I have my own things going on. But in order to be a holistic human being, a part of this world, we kind of need to like be aware of things. And so the practice helps us be this human who's in the world but not of it. I don't know if you've heard of that before. So being in the world but not of it, we take in all the stimuli from what we hear, what we see, what we taste, but not being attached to it. It's all, I feel like I'm just saying the same thing, but I think that's the point, right? Like everything is the same thing. So with Pratyahara, one of my teachers, she's one of my great teachers. I don't agree with her on this aspect though. She would say Pratyahara, you practice with your eyes closed. But then I think that's just not practical because we don't walk around with our eyes closed. So I think practically to practice Pratyahara, you can practice standing meditation or open-eyed meditation. So just like what we did here, you sit, you keep your eyes open, focus at one spot, and you notice things, but you don't like hold on to it. So again, going back to like noticing your thoughts and then letting it pass. It's like clouds in the sky. It's like the train passing by. You can either choose to hop on or let it go. So that's like Pratyahara too. Any questions on that? Any questions on Pranayama, Asana too? I don't think I asked. No?
For breathing, is there like a right way to do it? Just like belly breathing,
It depends. That's a good question. I mean, generally you want to breathe in your lungs. Yeah. No, but that's a good point because actually I was corrected by a teacher before because I was breathing into my belly a lot, which isn't wrong. 'Cause I was doing it in asana, so it depends what you're doing. So in asana, you kind of want to have you heard of Uddiyana Bandha or bandhas? So there are locks in our bodies. Uddiyana Bandha is belly lock. So ideally, when you practice pranayama and asana, you'll have this lock in because it helps the prana when you breathe. Any prana, if you're doing nadi shodhana or belly or 3-part breaths, whichever breath, if you hold that lock, it helps the prana move upward rather than leaking out. So if you're asking me if there's a right way to do it, it would be to like keep an awareness of your posture. That's the main thing. Yeah, I'm trying to avoid like don't do that or don't do that because you can practice it. It's very loose. Yeah. But if you're looking at a specific practice, I would suggest like looking for a teacher or looking online. There's so many videos of how to practice like Nadi Shodhana. There's plenty of videos of how to do that online. Yeah. Hope that was helpful. Okay, cool. Anything else so far?
So you mentioned that asana is like a gateway to a higher.
Mhm.
So does like someone like an older, more senior yogi spend less time doing physical asana and more time on
A yogi specifically? Like someone who's practiced or just any?
someone who's like has a lot of experience practicing?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, yeah, it gets easier. Like for me, I can just probably plop down and sit, and it's comfortable. Cause it can get uncomfortable if you sit for a long time. Like there are like retreats where people sit for 10 days, just straight 8 hours every day, and it's hard. So that's why the asana, it helps us become more flexible and strong to sit. And so someone who's been practicing for a while, they'll be both physically and mentally strong and flexible. That's contingent on their practicing sincerely and with a good teacher. Like they're not enforcing old habits. Like if you don't have a teacher, sometimes yoga can like enforce bad habits, like posture wise. So contingent on that, someone has a good teacher, it'll be easier for them to just like sit and meditate, and that's their practice. Like I have some teachers, they don't do asana. I know one teacher, her name's Mirabai. She doesn't do asana. She just so it gets easier to just get to Dharana, which is where we're going next. Thank you. Dharana is concentration. It's related to meditation. It's like a specific practice to get to a meditative state. So before you get to this meditation, concentration is you focus on one point. So Dharana, for example, you may focus on your breathing. That's Dharana. We say that a lot in class, like just focus on your breathing. If you get distracted, that's okay. Come back to your breath. That's Dharana. You can also focus on like a word, a mantra. Mantra is mind tool. Manas is mind. Cha is tool. Anyways, I can go on so many tangents, but Dharana, that's Dharana. Let's practice it. So let's try it. Having a seat, rest your hands onto your lap or your thighs, and then close your eyes. Let's close our eyes if that feels safe for you. And just focus on the inhale and the exhale. You can have a mantra as well. I am inhaling, I am exhaling. I am inhaling, I am exhaling. Stay here for a few minutes. If any thoughts, noises, distractions come by, it's okay, notice it, and then come back to your breath. Keep your awareness on your breath, but gently blink your eyes open, gaze towards the earth. Keeping the awareness still on the breath. I am inhaling, I am exhaling. Okay, take a breath in, fill up. And exhale, release. Okay. Look forward. Any thoughts, questions, Dharana, experience?
I felt like I was up here.
Yeah.
My attention was more focused on my back for the first part. So I had bad posture, I guess. So I was trying to stay straight. And then eventually I was like, you know, like my attention shifted away.
Yeah.
I was distracted with something.
Maybe all of it. I was distracted for sure. That's interesting how you mentioned you were like in your body first, and then you like adjusted.
Yeah, it's like somewhere.
There is a practice, so like Dharana, you can focus on your body too. So instead of the breath, you can also focus on sensations in the body. So if you notice like, oh, I feel wind, it's cold. Instead of it's cold, it's just wind. And then coming back to, yeah, so that's another way to practice dharana. There's equivalent in Buddhism, vipassana. Is anyone practicing Buddhism, Zen Buddhism? No? Okay, well vipassana is, it translates to see things as they are. So when you practice, similar to dharana and pratyahara, where you're just, you take in senses and stimuli and information, however you maintain, you just notice it for what it is. Like that grass, these are just a bunch of lines, like when you look at it, like the clouds, it's a mystic eye, essentially.
That's something that you do like in your day-to-day life? Or...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Wait, which part?
Well, I just mean like, that's the mindset that you bring to your day-to-day life, like walking around like this tree.
Yeah, there is that's the walking meditation. You can try that, where you're walking mindfully and you're just taking in, you're not talking, you're just looking around, oh, look at the flower, and because we can miss a lot when we're talking, or like, so if you have a chance and you're going on a walk, like walk by yourself, or if you're walking with someone, just walk in silence. It's a really good practice to practice this. Noticing what is, because we all have our perceptions, conditions based on how we were raised, who we're around, and our society and such. And so in yoga, those are called the koshas. They're like layers and sheaths and personas, essentially, that we pick up. And then again, with the practice, we go deeper into those layers to again uncover our true essence underneath the personas, underneath the facades. And with vipassana, we can really practice that, like seeing ourselves as we are, not who we are, like our roles, our jobs, not who we were in our families. That's essentially what the practice helps us uncover. And when you get deep in the practice, sometimes you find like your relationships will change because you've changed. So, any other questions on Dharana so far? Experiences want to share? Okay. So, with Dharana, the idea is you practice, you concentrate on one thing for so long, you get to a meditative state, Dhyana. I think there's research on this. I think it's like 15-20 minutes is the sweet spot to meditate and to get into that meditative state. So if you're starting your meditation practice, maybe you want to start like 5 minutes and then build it up to at least 15-20 minutes. And then again, so you can start by focusing on your breath or mantra, dharana, and then going into meditation. And that's just all it is. It's Dhyana meditation. It's a state. Yeah, and you can sometimes, I like to equate, is that a word? Equivalate? Equate, thank you, that's the best, yeah, that's the word. Sometimes I find myself when I teach, sometimes I add such superfluous word, yeah, words. But anyways, yeah, meditation, so it's like flow state. The flow state is where like time is nothing. You're just immersed in what you're doing. It's kind of related to the last one too. So you can kind of experience this if you're drawing for a long time or doing art, if you're running. You can kind of find these states in, is again going back to asana, trying to bring yoga into whatever you're doing, whether you're writing or drawing or running or biking or whatever else we do. You can, yeah, get so immersed that time, it's like, whoa, where did the time go? And that's tying into samadhi. So you meditate long enough to get to a point of samadhi, kind of like the flow state. Over here it says absorption, bliss, contemplation. Ooh, it's cold. Move over here, adjust. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Oh, the mic too. So examples of, you can experience samadhi in like shavasana. You might have experienced it in a class. After a long, hard class, you're like, finally, shavasana. You just rest and receive, because we've done all the hard work, all the tapas, the Mexican dish, all the tapas, all the hard work and suffering, all the way to, and we moved the life force and withdrew from what's going on around us, and we're just in bliss. I put examples here. It's like watching the sunset, eating your favorite ice cream. It's like you're just, when you watch the sunset, you're just like, wow, the world, it sucks sometimes, but it also has sunsets. It's like it's again going back to the oneness of all. You recognize like, okay, things are on fire somewhere, and there's beautiful sunset and ice cream, and yeah, it's like all going beyond like non-duality of things. Like things aren't just bad or good. Things aren't just, I'm not that either. We're all of it. So that's samadhi. That's, if there's a goal for yoga, I'm saying in quotes because it's like, again, we're supposed to be unattached to the outcome and the fruits of our labor, that it would be samadhi if there is a goal. It's to just recognize, I am one with all. It's hard to like talk about it without being so like I need to touch the grass and like stay grounded when I talk about it. But I like these examples because I think those are pretty, like, you can kind of relate to all of those things. Does anyone think of any other examples? Maybe samadhi, where it's just like things are, I guess it's kind of hard to find examples.
Example is, for me, it's like when I hang out with friends, and then like at the end of the day, I'm like, that was like a good, beautiful day. It was a perfect day, kind of thing. I think that's a good example.
Well, yeah, I was just thinking about like, for me, family sometimes. But yeah, when it's a nice day that reminds you like, okay, I have work tomorrow, but today was a nice day. Like, sweet. So that's the 8 limbs. Any questions before we go? Carmen had a great question when we were discussing like this description of the class. She asked like, what did I mean about from outer to inner consciousness, outer consciousness to inner consciousness? So if you look at the order of these things, it kind of works from outward to inward, and it's designed that way again because like one thing prepares us for the next. They're like what's it called, prerequisites, yeah, for the next thing. But it's loose because like I said, most people practice asana without even knowing what the yamas and niyamas are, which is okay. there may be some like spiritual bypassing with that. I've experienced that. Like when I first started practicing yoga, I was like, I do yoga. Everyone should do yoga. Like my ego was just like, this is great. Everyone should do this. Like, and I wasn't practicing these other things. So I had like this cognitive dissonance sort of thing. This was like pretty recent, like 2 years ago when the pandemic hit. I was like, cognitive dissonance. Like, I'm teaching yoga. I'm teaching all these things. However, I'm still like excessively smoking weed and like excessively drinking and like doing these things that are harmful, or like lying, stuff like that. And I think that caused me to kind of like, that's the best way I can describe it.
We've all been there.
Don't ask me to use words for that. But yeah, and then it wasn't until I stepped back, I stopped teaching for a few years, and then I like focused on my practice. I found a good teacher who teaches on these precepts essentially. So yeah, if you knew me a few years ago, I was completely different, even a year ago. But yeah, so we work outward all the way out, from outward to inward, because we're humans. It's easy to grasp like, okay, pose, yoga pose, rather than like, okay, concentrate. Just, it can be kind of jarring if you just jump into these things. So
I kind of wish that more like yoga studios also incorporate the rest of the inputs.
yeah,
It's like you said, it's asanas.
yes,
But then I want someone to go through the rest with me,
right.
like offer courses or lessons.
Yeah, and they're out there. They teach these in like teacher trainings, like thousands of dollars of teacher training, but this information is out there. So yeah, I agree. I think teachers in general, like there's so much we can offer in our classes beyond the poses. Like you can learn a lot from the poses. However, yeah, I agree. Like talking more, teachers, they do pranayama. Like you'll see asana and pranayama a lot in there, but yeah, they might not mention like, okay, we're like focus on the breath, that's concentration, or samadhi. They may not ever mention that, but essentially we experience all of these things on the mat too. Like what we do on the mat, we are doing all of this essentially. So I would say like the yamas and niyamas are kind of like before you get on the mat, and you can practice it on the mat in certain ways. Asana, obviously, you're doing the asana. Pranayama, we do that too. And then shavasana is usually like these last four limbs. Yeah, and we only dedicate like 5%. Hey! Welcome! Do you have any questions?
Yeah, what it is.
Everything. Oh, I have, here, I'll give this to you. Here you are.
I guess maybe part of that challenge, Carmen, to your point, is like the intention of, in a lot of ways, like yoga has become kind of just like a fitness trend, which, you know, like it is such a rich experience that a lot of folks don't realize. And I think that maybe that's where that like disconnect is, where there's a lot of fitness studios who teach it just for the point of like, let's get you moving, versus understanding like the holistic side of it.
Yeah. A lot of it's like that, and I don't want to like dog on it. Is that the word? Yeah, because it's like it does. There's lots of benefits from even just the asana. Like I said before, I was clinically depressed, and just getting myself out of my room and doing something. Because when you're depressed, it's like you don't want to do anything. So doing the opposite of that, that in itself was healing. And then I did the poses, and then it led to one thing to the next. So yeah, so I like that, and like I think sincere yogis and Hindus they're okay with like how westernized yoga is, because it's like people are doing yoga, great, yeah, that's the more better. Like it's not like what's it called? Okay.
It's not like
I mean, I think
Nothing.
it feeds into like the broader idea of like letting things. There's no gatekeeping to yoga because of these other beliefs, and I think it's healthy
Yes. Yeah. So like, yeah, there are some people who are very like purist. They're like, oh, you're doing yoga for a nice butt. And it's like, yes, I will get a nice butt. But like, have you heard of yoga sculpt? It's yoga with weights. It's essentially workout yoga. I love it, honestly. But there are lots of people that are like, that's not yoga. But you get to a shavasana at the end, and that's what we want to experience. Like getting out of like. For some people, they need to have that extreme like movement of like getting that energy moving in order to, and then I think as long as they get that 1 or 2 minutes of shavasana, like that's awesome. So I'm definitely not one of those people that are like, that's not yoga. Everything's yoga by definition. Yeah, so thank you for saying that. Anything else?
Can we review?
Sure, yeah, let's review. All right, so test. Jenny was Okay, so we started with 8 limbs. We started with the Yamas, which are restraints, abstinences, which is essentially like the do's and don'ts, like how you want to behave towards others and towards yourself, both mentally, physically. So non-violence, being truthful, not stealing, energy-wise, physically. Brahmacharya is moderation, so containing, only using what you need, trying not to leak energy excessively, including moderation, right? So I still drink occasionally, but just not excessively. Aparigraha, non-hoarding, non-greediness.
You steal someone's energy. How's that done?
Well, mental space. So say you're like talking someone's ear off.
Oh, okay.
That's like stealing someone's time. If you're late, sorry, I don't mean to call you out. That's and like, yeah, like say you're just taking up someone's, yeah, just being mindful of how you're, yeah, exactly. Aparigraha, non-hoarding, non-attachment, both mentally, physically. So yeah, with your thoughts, what you have. Niyamas is kind of more like a practical practice. So saucha, being clean mentally, physically. We all took a shower, right? We have the privilege of that. Santosha, contentment / gratitude practice. Gratitude practice essentially is a mindfulness practice, being mindful of what you have, don't have, and being okay with that, with whatever you don't and do have. That's santosha. Tapas is delicious. Mexican dish. Self-discipline, austerity, again, it translates to burn. So, yeah, we're sacrificing our comfort in order to reach some level of resilience and mental fortitude. That's how I see tapas. Svadhyaya, self-study. Again, you can do that by studying ancient texts, such as the sutras here. Another example of that is like psychotherapy, where you like psychoeducation, when you learn about psychology and you can apply that and learn about yourself by learning about psychology. So that's an example of svadhyaya. Isvara paridana is practicing doing things with intention beyond yourself, of going beyond the ego, transcending, yeah, the little case self, trying to do things towards a higher purpose. Self-sacrificing? Kinda.
Or giving.
I would attribute self-sacrificing with something else, maybe with like tapas, like something like that. Isvara is more like, yeah.
Contextualizing yourself in a larger whole.
Yes. So the example with my dad, working out and eating healthy because he wants to be there for baby. So sweet. Okay, and then so we practice these things in our daily lives, yamas and niyamas, and then that helps us. Freezing, sorry. I'm trying to see if I have a
lot of bumblebees.
It's okay. So asana, perfect. Asana moves, prana. I'll just do asana so I can stay warm. So before we do asana, ideally we'll be practicing the yamas and niyamas, and that way when we practice asana, we'll be in a more, what's it called, the mental state, because the yamas and niyamas help us in the asana, right? So we practice contentment wherever we are in our posture, in our practice, whether we can go upside down or not. Santosha, we're practicing that. So that's why it's helpful to know these yamas and niyamas before you do asana. Because sometimes when we do asana, it's like we're in our head still. It's like, oh, I can't do that. I suck. This is not for me. Or that person's so much better than me. Or like, I should have started this earlier. Yeah, so that's why it helps to know non-violence in our minds. So yeah, asana, and then going into pranayama, which is breath retention, extending our life force. Help us stay mentally clear and focused. That's pranayama helps practice. Pratyahara is withdrawal from the senses. So again, being in the world but not of it, essentially. We can't turn off our hearing, or we can close our eyes, but again, we can't turn off hearing or sound or noise or smell. So again, practically, we'll take in the information, but without, again, practicing aparigraha, without attaching to whatever we take in.
Do you think like the sensory deprivation tank would help? Actually, no, that would hinder, because this is the point, like you're buffeted by
Yes.
sensory thing you're supposed to really
Yes.
control.
There you go. I don't even need to answer you. You already have it. Yeah. I mean, I've never tried those before. Have you tried it before?
No, I've never tried that.
Sounds scary.
It's like Stranger Things.
You're in a low room. You're in like salt water and stuff on your eyes, on your ears.
Sounds scary.
Anyways.
Anyways.
The lack of sensory input is the drug, because your brain is reaching for something. You go on it for too long. But I don't think that's good for it.
That's like an extreme withdrawal from senses. All right. Okay, so from pranayama, we go to pratyahara. Oh, we're already in pratyahara. Pratyahara, we're withdrawn, not attached from what we receive. We get to a point of dharana, concentration, concentrate on one point. It could be any object. It could be your body, it could be your breath, a person, a word, the sun. You can meditate on the sun. And then you do that long enough, you get to a meditative state where you don't even need to think about we've been talking about notice your thought and then come back to your breath. That's still dharana, but meditation's the point where you don't even need to do that. You're just and you sit in meditation long enough, you reach samadhi, absorption, bliss, contemplation, where you're just oh, okay, everything's okay. There's an extreme meditation practice where you meditate on it's kind of morbid. You meditate on death, or meditate of an earthquake. So you sit and you meditate that an earthquake's going on. That's serious practice. You try to stay. That's a very extreme example. But that's the practice, right? Asana. You want to be in a meditative seat, regardless of what's going on around. Not reacting, so that you can respond rather than react.
So am I correct in assuming that the last three limbs, 6, 7, and 8, kind of blend together?
Yes.
You'll sit down to concentrate on something, and that will lead to meditation, which will then lead to absorption.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yep.
Dang.
It's kind of hard to just
Diagram.
absorb diagram. Oh, I should have done the diagram. Any other questions? Thoughts?
What is the point of in your perspective of
Not in the lesson.
Of what? Of the yogi? What's the point of life in the perspective of a yogi?
Like, this is saying, like, how to live your life,
Yeah.
kind of, but what, like, in the perspective of a yogi, what is life? Or, yeah, why?
Why are we here? Oh, this is getting
Or does
very
yogi,
extensive.
like, have an answer?
That's a good question.
Wouldn't that be too
Really,
easy?
is that like
If there was
really
one-
finite though? If being in this practice is to let things go and move through. So if you had a point that you were trying to reach or like get to, does that
Contradict.
That's a good point.
right? Like the rest of the practice is like I'm moving through this. It is a
Yeah.
journey.
Yeah, I agree with that. Let's hold on that thought. But going back to I think your question was more like is it like why are we here? What's the point of us being here?
Yeah.
I think that's like really.
Does that have answers?
I don't think, well, at least from what I know as of now, I don't have the answer to that. It's very interesting. But as far as like, so we're all part of the world, right? We exist. So I guess my answer is more like why should we do this? Why should we do this practice? It's not really your question. I hope that's okay. Okay. Yeah, because I don't know why we're here. Does anybody? Who knows, right? Even like say
This practice is
to
a way of
suffer.
that state of understanding.
Oh, no, I have an answer. So, it's to work through. This is just my human answer based on what I know right now. It could change. And it might not be accurate, but who knows. Work through karma, essentially. So, this is going into Hinduism. I don't know if you want to get into Hinduism, which is like a different thing from, it's the bigger cosm of yoga.
Sure.
Oh, sure. It's like, we're here. Wait, let me check my parking.
Expand it.
Okay, I have time. I have 30 minutes. Everyone good on parking? Okay. So, with Hinduism, we're born, the idea is that we're born, the reason why we're here is because we have some like karma to work through based on some past life. Like, I can't think of an example, but, and the goal of the life is to work through the karma in order to reach moksha, which is liberation from the cycles of life and death. And to attain moksha is you have to work through your karma, essentially. And karma is just a response, sort of, to action. Like, you do something, and then something, something happens. So there's good karma, bad karma. Again, there's no good and bad. It's all karma, essentially. And so the point, according to Hinduism, is to transcend life and death and liberate our soul. And yoga is one of those practices to get there. That's why I said Hinduism's not an organized religion, because there's so many ways to get to that place. Essentially, that's Hinduism and that's similar with Buddhism too. You want to get to, I think it's moksha too. They do Sanskrit as well. So yeah, you want to liberate your soul by being a good person. Be purifying. Again, going back to like talking about burning and fire, like sometimes we need to suffer in order to purify and we sacrifice our comfort in order to burn away impurities. So I guess to answer, that would be my answer to your question. That's going into philosophy, religion. Yeah. Good question. Any other questions? Cool.
Can we try to do headstands?
Sure. All right. So next. It's really. Maybe we should stretch first. You guys.
There's nothing wrong with supporting others. The journey towards headstands.
Yeah, we can do some playtime. Yeah, maybe we can transition it now to if we don't have any more, you guys can still ask me questions. We can transition to just hanging out time, eating, and we can do some yoga if you want. You want to do a headstand?